LPR camera. So this particular model we released as a 5 megapixel camera with a 6 to 50 millimeter lens. We let you guys as the installer go out and set the lens, you know, the width of the view and the angle you want to get it at. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But this allows you to really tweak it in to get it to that sort of width of a bumper of a vehicle in order to capture as many plates as possible. It is autofocus, has a built-in IR. This is our new models with H.265. Of course, have our 5-year warranty. And it is designed to be an LPR camera, which means the IRs are on all the time. Okay, so it's always in a black and white mode and the IRs are on all the time. So let's just take a quick look at kind of like what comes in the box. And it's got, of course, our little card, allows you to go in and download our IP finder if you don't already have it. Our servers do come with the IP finder on it. So just do a search and find the camera. We'll talk a little more about that in a second. Those are your IRs, part number. Probably my hand's shaking too much, so. And there's a little, what do you call it here? A sun shield goes on the top. Put that on. That also helps for glare. And if you notice, there's that black area in there. So if there is light reflecting off it, it's not going to reflect into the flat glass of the camera. I prefer a camera with a flat glass on it anyway. So I prefer, you know, a bullet camera or a turret style camera or a ball style cameras now over domes, only because the flat glass you get less reflection and weird stuff done with lighting. Remember, always take this plastic thing off, by the way. Very important. Won't work as well. And it also comes with a power lead and, of course, your test lead to plug in a handheld monitor to it. So some of the features of this, of course, you have your, your 5 megapixel resolution. This is also -40 cold start camera. So you can have it rolling around in your truck up in Quebec, up in Montana, up wherever, and that thing will power up and work even though it's -40. Okay, so it's a little different. Some cameras say they will work at -40, but they may not initially work if they're that cold already. So designed for a harsher environment camera installations. So it's designed for 50 miles an hour with a 60-foot capture range, reliable performance, even if there's some very tough lighting on it. 80-foot smart IR, 3D noise reduction, and if needed, a programmable privacy zones. This is something you wouldn't necessarily use privacy zones on versus a camera that's sort of overlooking housing and stuff like that. We're going to focus it as best we can in the back of the vehicle. It is triple codec, H.265, H.264. So depending on if you're using a third-party software, to either detect the plates or as a VMS, it'll work in all those different environments. Oh, sorry, guys. My mouse went forward. All right. Someone said, thank you, Quebec. It distracted me. So, first off, you use the IP finder to find these devices. And so I have mine set on my little home network for DHCP, but I, of course, got another camera plugged in here, enabled it. We can get, of course, the MAC address, all the other stuff. And then if we want, if we have the login for the camera, so the admin username, or if you put another username and password in the camera, we'll talk about that a little bit. But you will then see the thumbnail from the camera, okay? So if you wanted to see the thumbnail, just look at it. It's really just for quick test setup, that kind of a stuff. It's not meant to aim the camera, because the camera's autofocus, it should be in focus anyway. We also can do bulk IP assignments. So if you have a number of digital Watchdog cameras and really a lot of on-VIF cameras, you can actually force the IPs into them in the range you want. So let's say the corporate network is a 10.something.something.something. You want your camera network on this site as 192.168.20.xxx. You can just have the cameras, let's say they're starting at 5. You can have 5 to 200 cameras, 300 cameras, and force all the IPs into them. Same thing with password assignment. You can change the passwords in all the cameras, the admin password in all the cameras, all right? And you can even do a firmware update on most of our cameras. There's still a couple that the firmware update doesn't work properly. I know that they're working on it. This is the latest version you download from our website, 4.4.7. So some of you guys may be using an early version. Download this one because it does find cameras a little faster. It works faster on these multi-home networks too that have, you know, different subnets talking to the gear. So the other thing is when you're looking at video configuration, you may not always want the 5 megapixel view. So this would allow you to do 5 megapixel. I don't know what that. I think that's 4, 3, 2, and even 1 megapixel, because some software you're going to use might actually shoot up to a cloud service to actually decode the plate and then push it back down. Okay, I think Open LPR does that, and so they may not want a 5 megapixel image in order to view it because it'll take too long to come up and down. And so this allows you to tweak it to get wherever you want on that. Or you could always leave the main view at 5 and use the secondary stream to work on that. Because remember, all these cameras have at least 2 streams, and we actually have a third one here. Can be H.264 or motion JPEG output. So you actually have your different streams to then send to your whatever you're doing. Okay, you know, generally speaking, you know, you want to push for the highest quality, especially when you have the vehicles further away or whatever. But some of the software may not need it. Some of the software will say max is 1 megapixel or 2 megapixel camera, but it allows you to get the range out of it. Okay, so keep that in mind. The other thing is if you're on a sort of a hinky network connection, even if you think it might be hinky or you're using gear that maybe not is yours, turn on the CVBR for frame rate priority, and then the SVC, which is your allows it to go in. The SVC-T allows it to go in, and if the network connection is not great for whatever reason, it'll actually take out certain parts of the video that now it thinks it's not needed, but allow the video to transfer with a higher frame rate. Okay. So keep that in mind. These you may want to turn on if you see something going on. If you have, for some reason, high ping times, okay, for your cameras, and again, it could be a direct setup. You could have a problem with a switch. High ping times, you turn this on, you'll notice your frame rate on your Spectrum system or on your VMS really stays consistent using those that functionality. And of course, Spectrum. If you're using Spectrum, you can set these parameters for as far as frame rate. And it will manage the bit rate and everything in Spectrum, but I kind of want to show you some of these pages. Now, when you go in and tweak the camera, with LPR cameras, you definitely want to try to tweak it just a little bit and change your brightness or contrast a little bit. Contrast seems to help in LPR situations. You don't have to turn up a lot. These are default settings, okay? So I haven't changed any of these. Brightness in the middle, sharpness 55, 43. I've noticed if you drag this up to right around the middle, 49, 48, 51, right there, it works fine. And saturation, because it's in black and white, don't have to worry about saturation. But I noticed that if you go with the contrast a little higher, the plates tend to pop out better. Okay, so minor adjustments, and look at Quebec plate. The next thing is we'll talk about factory defaults. So factory defaults is we have auto exposure off, the metering for the camera, so how it's measuring how much gain to bring up, the AE metering, we have it set for center because we probably assume you're trying to get that plate right in the middle of the screen, and so you want it to do its metering for the center. Sometimes if you have the vehicle is farther away, it's sort of at that max, at 50, 60 feet, you turn it to sometimes spot will work better. The faster the vehicle's going, the higher the shutter speed. So we ship it from the factory at 1/1000th of a second. You may want 1/2000th of a second for faster moving vehicles, you know, over 40 miles an hour. But remember, it requires more light because shutter speed is the speed the shutters, the shutters opening and closing for to make the picture. Okay, and so that's 1/1000th of a second. So if you go to 1/2000th of a second, that shutter speed is that much faster. Okay, the lower the number, the slower. So 1/30th, so that 1/25th, 1/15th. So that's slower. That means that thing is staying open longer, letting more light in. In this case, we want it shorter in order to capture with high clarity the plate. You guys seen these professional photographers, and they catch a guy jumping up in the air or, you know, a bird flying. They're actually using very high shutter speeds in order to capture it so that picture is clear. Okay. Slow shutter is off. We're not going to use the slow shutter. And the gain limit, you can, you know, crank that up. I think the next jump is 6 dB. If plates are blurry, as you can see, raise the shutter speed because that means the vehicles are going too fast, and 1/1000th of a second might not be cutting it, so go to 1/2000th of a second. Okay, so, and again, tweak the contrast a little bit, and you should be okay. 3D noise reduction, I'm actually a fan in all of our cameras that have come out in the last, I think, 3 years of this feature. We do have it turned on the factory. You can turn it all the way off, turn it all the way on, but it is the way they've designed the algorithm and how it picks apart the noise is actually really good, especially if you're dealing with a low light situation. It works very well. I suggest you pick up one of our new cameras and, you know, kind of mess around with it and see. It'll actually clean up a picture, make features come out a little more, especially in the low light situations. It's a very accurate way of removing noise. It's just not pulling out random pixels trying to figure it out. The algorithm in there, what it's doing, actually works very well for removal of noise. So always set your date and time. Make sure the date and time is right. I sometimes go in and synchronize to my computer. I know we'll have a IP finder somewhere in the future that will allow you to push time to the cameras and set it in there. Right now, I would just go in and make sure the time is right. And if you can, sync them to a time server. And with LPR, this is even more important because they may want a timestamp baked into the frame along with the plate. Okay, and so they, you know, some places want the timestamp coming from the camera, not from the VMS. And so this is a way to make sure the time is accurate and it matches what the VMS is. So you're doing this on the VMS, it synchronizes the time with your computer. The other way to do it, of course, is to talk to a time server. You may be able to talk to a local time server. Sometimes it's even the gateway. So you have the system ping the gateway, or you use one of the time servers on the internet. I think there's 3 or 4 listed in here, but you can just put an IP address in there or another domain. You don't have to use what's listed there. You can set the time manually, but these are all computerized devices, and so they all tend to drift a little bit. So I would say to you, have it synced, especially if you're doing LPR to a time server somewhere. I think that's an important functionality. As far as mounting the camera, you've got a couple mounting options. 3 to 18 feet high, the more direct you can look at the plate, the better. You know, 30 degrees in, if you're taking into account trying to deal with larger trucks, you know, tractor trailers where they got that license plate inset, you actually got to maybe push the camera a little lower because it might never get a view of the plate, or the vehicle might be too far away to read the plate by the time it reaches the angle where the thing can see it. And also remember, these are using IR light, so the IR light has to be able to reflect back, and that's why also you don't want too steep an angle. All right, and again, off to the side, you know, 23 degrees, 18 degrees, you know, you're okay. Because what happens is that IR light has to be able to hit the plate and be able to bounce back and be seen in order to be able to read the plate. Okay? So you could have it, let's just say 18 feet high and 20 degrees off. Okay? So you got to keep that in mind when mounting these. Make sure you're getting a clear view of the vehicle. If you go too far off angle, you'll miss more plates just because you won't be able to see it. And if you're trying to get 2 lanes, the camera does have to be in the middle. Okay, if you're off to the side, again, you might get this one, but you won't get the plates here if you had the camera over here. Again, with front mounted plates, I mean, most US states have the plates in the back. Some have them in the front and some don't. So it's hit or miss. Sorry, this shows the front, but same thing. Try to get those plates. If you need to get the plates from both lanes, I would say go with 2 cameras, okay, and do that. And like I said, depending on the different software you're using, not for recording, but for analysis, you might have to change things up a little bit. So let's talk a little integration. So Spectrum and LPR integration. So first, how does kind of the camera work with just Spectrum? All right. So I got to go here, start this, sorry. So I'm just going to drag over a camera. Some of you guys have probably seen this before. We're going to do a motion search. And then there's a couple things I can do. I can go on my timeline and look, or I can now use my new notification window to go in, find the spot where it is. I'm just going to hit pause here. And you guys, again, Zoom might compress it, but you guys should be able to read the plate there. And again, stop. We can then either zoom in, save the frame or whatever, and then I can just go through the different motion events that happen in that line. That's one way to look at plates. Use the built-in motion detection and go in and you can view the plates directly from there. Again, so this is more daylight where you actually have more of a problem getting the plates because you never know where the sun's going to be. All right. But you'll get in California, you'll get more plates in the back than in the front. I think you have to have them on both on the vehicle. I could be wrong about that, front and back, but it seems like some people have them on the front and some people don't. So anyway, those of you who live in California can set me straight. So when you're doing a search, oh, sorry, here we go. Somehow or another repeated the slide. So when you're doing when you're talking about integrations, okay, you can take an LPR camera, and this is Briefcam. So Briefcam does a different search. It's looking at all the cameras, okay, and it creates a catalog of them. So then you can type in for the plate you're looking for. So it gives you a little a different way of searching for plates. And this is actually set up to search for text. So you see it found the police on the side of the car, so whatever. So this is trying to do it in color, but there are times when if there's the lighting's not right and there's problematic, you won't get the plate. So it's always good to have a color camera, regardless of what you're doing, as your overview, and of course your LPR camera. All right, because this is not always going to get the plates if it's too dark. They don't have a little light on the back of their car. Sunlight's directly going at the plates. They're just going to appear white on the screen. So that's Briefcam. Also, Neural Labs does these traffic analysis. All right, we'll let this thing start up. And again, this is another one showing during the day. And again, we'll just let it play. The video's playing slow in Zoom. I'll just force it forward here. There we go. So Neural Labs sends it directly in, and it reads the plate on the vehicle and allows you to search via the plate or type in Spectrum. So you don't have to be in another piece of gear. It actually pushes it in to there. So there's a couple of different ways you can do integrations with Spectrum. Now there's also C2P, okay, which is convergence to pixels technology, which talks to PlateSmart, Neural Lab, Vigilant, Q-Free, HTS, I don't know how to say that, LSAG, Nexmar. Some of these have the LPR in the camera. I want to say LSAB has that. A lot of this is different software. Q-Free is like a whole management software that includes LPR. And what we do with C2P is C2P takes the data from all these different things. And by the way, it includes a bunch of other stuff, okay? And normalizes it and puts it so it can be used in Spectrum. So it takes that data and puts it into a common format. So, okay, so whatever they're spitting out, it can be put into here, and then we can view it. So it does barcodes, license plate recognition, biometrics, a whole bunch of other stuff. And I'm just going to hit spreadsheet. I'm going to hit view. It's going to go down, and I can just go and choose a plate. Come on, Paul, choose a plate. And you can click show. So you already have the plate on the bottom. You click show, and then it puts it up over here. Okay. And if you want, you can take the actual camera, bring it up, and it will then show the whole vehicle in a clearer picture on there. So again, the C2P thing is great because it allows you to take in not just LPR on the system. So there's a bunch of ways to do integrations with LPR, with Spectrum, and view it directly in Spectrum. So let's talk a little bit about the DW website. All right, just to give you guys a little refresher on it. So first off, our DW website, you go to our support page. So that means you go to the main page, you double click on support, you type in LPR, it'll give you LPR camera setup guide tools, you know, best practices. We'll talk about our C2P LPR integration, okay, and C2P middleware integration. So it actually tells you, you know, how it works, how to do it. If there's a specific thing you're looking for, by all means, you know, contact our team or tech support. Oh, someone just sent me a message saying no front plate is a ticket in California, but not enforced. So, yeah, well, nothing's getting enforced anymore, right? I mean, you can pretty much do what you want. Anyway, so yeah, so that's in our support website. We're adding items to this, I mean, all the time. I mean, look, so we have our C2P LPR integration. We've got our camera setup guide. I mean, that was May 2020. That's very recent. So we have someone in our California office whose job it is to make sure this is updated. We have new items in there. So this could change, you know, in 2 days, and they added another article to it. So also keep in mind, hold on. Also keep in mind our products, except for 4, are NDAA approved. They're either made in South Korea, Vietnam, or Taiwan, okay? Our main factories are in South Korea and Vietnam. So if you're using the product, we have a list. You go to our support website, you type in NDAA, it'll bring up the article on that and show you the list of all the products that we know don't have any parts from any of these third-party manufacturers that the government has deemed problematic or you know, possible security problem with it, and where there's a lot of federal money floating around, like a lot. So got to keep that in mind. If you're getting federal funds, you want to make sure you're compliant with all this. We're also California IoT compliant. Okay, so keep that in mind. There's new laws that kind of match GDPR as far as your compliance for security for your network devices. So we're compliant with California IoT, and we're constantly looking at these things because the cybersecurity stuff is not going to get any looser. It's going to get tighter, and so we're constantly looking at making sure we're in compliance with whatever is the latest thing out there. And just kind of the last thing we're going to talk about here, upcoming webinars. So we're going to have one on Wednesday for the HD over coax 20X PTZ. Hopefully we'll have that mounted on the building by the time we do that. And then a couple of our other PTZ cameras soon after that. We'll have, let's see, what is that? Yeah, Thursday. So do you guys got any questions for me? Anything